You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. I hope you all are well. So, I have a real gem of a show for you this week with a real gem of a human being. By overwhelming popular demand, I am in the house with Diane Grim, who many of you met on our Instagram channel when she gave our team the most heartwarming and delightful interview ahead of the Western States 100-mile trail race. And I will link that in the show notes just in case you missed it, because it is 100% worth checking out. You see, at age 65, Diane was the oldest woman towing the line at Western States this year, which, not for nothing, is widely considered one of the toughest organized trail runs in the U.S. Diane had also never run a 100-miler. This was her very first, and she had not even taken up running before her 50s. But after her first trail run, she fell in love with the joy of tromping through the woods and splashing through streams. And in her words, I might have been 50, but I was 10 inside. And you're only as old as you want to be. And many people responded by saying, interview her. And well, I actually knew her. Diane and I raced in the same cyclocross races back in the day before she hung up her wheels and went all in on running ultras. So it was a real treat to have her on the show. And we do a little bit of chit-chatting about some of the races we did together in the beginning of the conversation. And just for some reference points, one of them is Iron Cross that we talk about, which you could consider one of the original gravel races in the US before gravel was officially a thing. And cyclocross, for those of you who don't ride, is just a very fun type of bike racing where you're on a drop bar bike that looks like a road bike. It's a little beefier. And you just race around an off-road course with obstacles that you jump off your bike and run up and over and jump back on. And it's super hard and super fun. So after this conversation, it didn't really surprise me that Diane loved it so much back in the day. Anyway, Diane did not have the Western States race she'd hoped for, but she left filled with pride and a newfound goal to wrap up some unfinished business out there to qualify again and maybe become the oldest finisher of the Western States race, which I'm putting that in the universe because I would love to see it happen. Anyway, we just talk all about her successes and failures and some of the crazy training that she went through menopause, which was frankly hilarious, and why you're just never too old to be young again. And I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. All right, before we get to it, head into those show notes and sign up for my free weekly Feisty 40 Plus newsletter with all the health and fitness news you can use. Follow us at Feisty Menopause on Instagram and Facebook. And if you haven't, hit the follow button on our podcast and go ahead and give us that follow and share with your friends because that really helps our show to grow and for folks to find us. I continue to see the ratings and reviews that you are dropping in Apple Podcasts. And as always, I really thank you for that. All right. Last thing, thanks Previnex for your long-standing support over the years. Everyone knows that I am a Joint Health Plus fanatic. I am not alone. I just heard from a community member who said she had stopped using the Joint Health Plus product while she was dealing with an unrelated health issue, and her joint pain came back worse than ever in places she never had it. And when she restarted it, it all resolved entirely. And she says, and I 100% concur, it works. So thanks, Previnex. We appreciate you. Okay, enough of me. Let's have a few words about our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. Okay, Diane, it is a real pleasure to have you on. I have to say, it was such a blast from the past to see you come up in my feisty feeds. Kelly O'Mara, who spoke to you out in Western States, said, "Do you know this woman? She's from PA." I was like, "Yes, I know this woman. I can track down her number for you." We go way back to Iron Cross, might be the original Iron Cross race. Might
Yeah.
be the first time, but I don't even know. Like, I don't know your history with bike racing enough. I mean, I know you were in a lot of cyclocross races I was in, and probably iron cross. So talk a bit about your history there, like as an endurance athlete.
So, bike racing, actually started doing that MS rides.
Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah,
of course I did
so
those.
you're talking back in the 90s. Back in
Hmm.
high school, I rode some bike. My mom, I gave her every gray hair she could ever imagine, but I wanted to ride to the shore, um, which took me 8 hours in jeans and sneakers. That's where the bike love came from. So did the MS rides, had a blast. The pace lines come in, and it's like, oh man, going fast is awesome. So I started racing like in the mid 90s on the road. And
Okay,
yep, so I didn't start cyclocross until I was well, I didn't start racing till I was 40.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's
What
a
what
ways
led you?
back.
What led you to that? So you were doing the MS, and when you say the MS rides, for people who don't know, I'm assuming you're saying like the city to shore, which is like Philadelphia
Yeah,
to the Jersey Shore.
exactly. And then I
That's
did
a fast ride. Yeah.
it is a fast ride. Yeah, it's like a crash fest too sometimes, but
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
fast ride. And like there's aid stations and stuff like that. So it's like recreational, but then you get your feet wet to the speed.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think there was another one where it was 100 miles one day and 100 miles the next day.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're all for multiple sclerosis. So I did that for like 5 years, raised a ton of money, and then started racing. Yeah,
Were you on a team?
I was. I raced for Amoroso.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
out of Philly,
Yeah.
where I got my first taste of the Liberty Classic.
Oh boy.
Uh, yeah, so I did that a couple years. I did the Coupe de Marquises, which was the North American Masters Championship in Canada.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, I podiumed that year. Like I think when I was 40, and then I came back. I won it. It was a stage race. So, and then I defended it the next year. So I found out I like multiple days. So the longer I would go, the better and stronger I got. So then jumped into cyclocross in like my 50s. Before I was 50.
Was that just because it was the thing to do?
Well, at 50 and road racing, menopause plays into all of that. All of a sudden, you're in your 40s and you're on the line where bike racing isn't like running. Um, there's no age groups in bike racing. So when you're racing the pro one, 1-2s, you're in there with 18 and 20-year olds and you're 45. Um, so that's where I started transitioning into cyclocross because cyclocross, first of all, had age groups
Hmm.
and it was safer because all of a sudden you're towing the line with all the 40s or all the 50s or groups of, masters. So 40 and up. Um, and all of a sudden it's safer because when you're racing the road at that age, you still have a mortgage to pay, and these kids are in there and they're 18 years old diving into corners. So it's great when you're young, but as you mature, you got to find your spot. So
Yeah, that's
cyclocross
real.
was it.
Yeah. How long did you do that?
I did cyclocross for 8 years maybe. Yep. So when I got into running, that year, I think I did 20 something cyclocross races and 20 something running races, which I found out you don't run race like you bike race because
I mean,
running takes a lot longer to recovery. Like, remember back in the days, I mean, you lined up, you raced Saturday, Sunday, you trained all week, you raced Saturday, Sunday in different states, and then and you were ready to go. Where running, takes a little bit more out of you.
Yeah, I find that too. What led you to get into running?
So it was cyclocross season, and the snow. We raced through everything, and my husband was just like, "Hey, let's do a running race," because he raced cross country in high school and he was a trail racer. So he goes, I said, "When's the race?" He goes, "2 weeks." I haven't run since high school. I'm 50 years old. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got on the went to the gym, did a mile on the treadmill. I thought I was gonna die. I'm holding on for the sides. Next workout was 2 miles. He's like, all right, we're ready to go outside. 3 miles. All I just said was run, walk, no walk. And he's like, really? So we get to the race 2 weeks after, get to the line, and he's like, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going up front. I'm like, there's like 500 people here. Why should I be last? I didn't even start yet. So I moved up and raced to off, and there was an uphill section. And this is chilly cheeks. It was like January. I've
So
got
it's a trail race.
it's a trail race,
What's the distance?
6.6 miles.
Was it one of Ron Horn's? That when you
Yes,
say
it
that name,
was.
okay.
Yes, it was.
That's a little insider stuff for people who are not from the Mid-Atlantic area or from
Exactly.
Pennsylvania. But Ron Horn and the Pagoda Pacers put on some body named events. So when you say Chili
Yes.
Cheeks, I'm like, oh, I bet that's a Ron Horn
Yep,
event.
it's a
Okay.
it's a Pretzel City sports race.
Yeah.
So it's like you start down a fire road and then you hit this bushwhacking section where it's just forest.
Yep.
And that was the last time my husband saw me. I was just like, it's game on. I went ripping and tearing up through these bushes and hooting and hollering, and that was it. I was hooked. Yeah. Yeah. Like halfway through, I'm like, I said to some guy, I'm like, are we last? He goes, no, we're killing it. I'm like, sweet. Yeah. So that was it. Then I still cyclocross raced and ran. So it was a perfect transition. Um, but because I might have been old, but I still had young body parts. I mean, I didn't abuse them. I wasn't a runner since I was 20. My knees were still in good shape. I mean, all I did was sit on a bike. So the endurance was there, um, and the body parts were still fresh. Yeah.
So at some point, do you put the bike in the garage for a while and just run? Because when I look at like the ultra run and some of the sites, you've done quite a few like longer distance runs now.
Yeah, the bike found its way to its resting place. Just can't fit everything.
Mm.
I was doing like uh the Berks County Bike Club. I was doing like their Tuesday night rides, jumping in on the A group, trying to just keep the endurance, keep the heart rate training. But once I started going into longer distance running, time it takes a lot more time. I mean, to go out and run 20 or to bike 20.
Totally.
Yep.
It takes a
Yeah.
lot more time.
Yep.
And what does your training look like for that? Like what kind of mileage do you do? It's very technical here on the East Coast, so there are a lot of, I mean, we're on the rocks all the time. Do you do strength training to complement it too?
I don't. And I do know that women of our age need to keep our muscles. So I do real life workouts. I do some landscaping, run chainsaws, take trees down. Um, I run across the backyard with my wheelbarrow full of dirt. Um, you know, uh, I'm doing everything that I do. I incorporate strength
Mm,
workouts with it. So I'm carrying a breaker bar. You know what those are? Like it's
tell me.
like a 40-pound steel metal bar. And you pound it into the ground and you pry bar. It looks like a big pry bar, but it's like 6 feet. So as I'm coming through the yard, I'm doing upright rows and overhead presses. So it's kind of funny, I'm walking around with buckets of dirt, doing shoulder shrugs, and yeah, when you're weeding, it's deep knee bends, it's lunges. So I just get real life strength workouts. Yeah.
And how long have you been doing the long the like the long distance running? How many years now? Has it been
Um,
15?
so at least, at
Okay.
least. Yep. I think I did a 50K when I was 59, which isn't that long ago. And actually took the overall at 59. So in the
Where was
fifth
that?
World's End State Park in
Oh, I know that place. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I know, and it's the best. I mean, you wanna talk about rocks, roots, and forests. It is epic. Yeah, it's like the supreme it's where Eastern States 100 is.
Yep.
So, you've got nasty single track and hills and creek crossings. Yeah, it's, like, great.
And you took the overall there?
I took the overall women's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yep, and 10th in the men 10th overall. That was a day where every star and every trail fairy was lined up and just sitting on my shoulder because you only have one day like that. Hopefully, you have one day like that.
What do
So,
you mean by that for people who don't run
um,
like that?
uh, wins are hard to come by at any age, and when everything just lines up, it's just like I was told at the end of that to cherish that moment because that's a moment people look for their whole lives, um, and they only last that day.
On
So
on the bike, we call them chainless days. You know, a day where it feels like your bike doesn't have a chain or I've hit that a couple times, not as often running, where you just feel like you could probably run forever. Is that sort of what you're talking about? Like that did
oh
it
no,
feel sort of effortless?
I couldn't have run another thing. I crossed that line with nothing in the tank. No, but I mean, it's a perfect day,
Mm,
like the perfect wave. It might only come along once in your lifetime, so cherish it. So, and it's never happened again. So, it was a moment. It was just a moment. Yeah.
that's very, very, very cool. Did has your fueling changed over time? You know, like I'm wondering that you've been doing this for a span now, so I'm wondering a lot of things. Like I'm wondering where menopause comes in this, how you've managed to stay injury free, if indeed you have, and like how you're if you've had to adopt any kind of fueling or different techniques as you have come through this over the past decade or so.
So menopause happened during bike racing. So till I hit running, um, I'm old.
You-
Yeah. So in my 40s, because I went into menopause early. So in my
Okay.
40s, mid 50s, I was full swing. Um, I cried a lot. Um, yeah. I mean, the tears and you weren't crying. I mean, the tears would just start pouring and we'd be on a training run, a training ride going up a hill in the winter. And you've got all these clothes on. I'm unzipping layer after layer. I've got my shirt open, my sleeves are up, my gloves are off, and now I'm crying. So picture this, you've got and yourself, you train with men,
I
um,
know.
and there's a few women mixed in, and so it's intimidating to start, and all of a sudden you hear someone, "Hey, she's crying again. Wait, she doesn't have her gloves on." Yes, it'll pass." So being menopausal in the winter is perfect. I mean, you got built-in heaters, but as far as fueling wise, I pretty much fuel exactly like I did on the bike. Yeah. I don't know about you, but like a gel, I used to do them every 45 minutes. I backed it down to like every 40. That way I never experience any lows.
Mm.
And but yeah, the same thing with on the bike, the salt tablets. The I know about like your bike has two bottle cages. For me, it was a bottle of water and a bottle of Roctane or a bottle of Tailwind, or so you're getting your electrolytes. So basically, all of that transitioned right into running perfectly.
That is that sounds very like you're very blessed. The fueling part has always been my kryptonite. To be like my gut can only like so much sugar even when I'm trying to train it, and sometimes it's just like nope, no mas, and then I'm nauseous. I battle that a lot. So
Uh-huh.
I have always had to really try to dial things in. I think I get it, and then some race happens and it all goes out the window. And with running, I feel a little less than I do on the bike because I feel like you can just eat so much more on the bike. But um, yeah, that is where I struggle the most. So I love hearing that you seem to be just sailing through.
Yeah, and so you talked about you can only handle so many gels. So basically I do my goo
Hmm.
every 40 minutes. And I just in between that, I do a bar. So I'm constantly having like I don't rely on aid stations a lot. I like to be a little more self-contained. So just grabbing that bar and having some solids to mix in with that gel. Boy, I'll tell you what, after 15 gels, you can only take so much, but it works if you put a little food in there. So, yeah,
I've
like a
tried that too.
pierogi. Yeah.
Like a pierogi. No, nothing is better than a pierogi. I do well with bacon. Like I need some real food totally and some savory stuff
Yeah, I
mixed
know.
in.
I've never done the bacon. I've been too
Oh,
nervous. But I did a
bacon is like
pierogi.
my superpower.
Oh, sweet. Yeah,
Yeah.
gummy bears and yeah, it's all sugar for me pretty much. So,
Yeah. I
yeah, I
wish.
did.
I mean, that's what I mean, that's you're putting octane in the tank, but it's always been my struggle.
Yeah, I
Always.
used to take, the bike shorts used to be really long, so we'd flip them up
Yep.
and you'd give yourself that little pocket, and I used to line
Yep.
up my Swedish fish in there. Yeah, it was perfect. They were just like in a little
Uh,
holding bin or, Teddy Grahams. You just pull them out every now and then. So
That is amazing. Um, so how did you find yourself? Because I definitely want to talk about Western states, which is, where we got reconnected.
yes.
How did you end up at the age of 65 attempting your first 100-mile event, and not only that, but being Western states?
Yeah, pretty much the premier race of yeah.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. It's bigger than life. Uh, yeah, so, I was doing this race called, Black Forest.
Not the done.
So it's up in, like, the Eastern States territory, okay, Pine Creek,
Yep.
Heiner, up that way. This race started at 12 midnight.
Oh wow.
It's 100K. It's absolutely brutal. Um, It's perfect, in my opinion. It's rocks, roots, single track, gnarly, just awesome. So I was this podcast called Running Mullet reached out and said, "Hey, we'd like to interview you, after the race." And I'm like, "Okay, sweet," So at mile 32, I tapped out. So I did not finish that race. That was my first DNF.
What
Um,
happened?
I had strep throat going into that, so I was still recovering. I cramped for the entire drive there, which was like 3 hours, and I cramped for the first 24 miles of the race.
Mm.
I ate salt tablets like candy. So my body was saying, "You're done." My IT bands said, "You're definitely done." Went down the last descent backwards off of the rocks because I couldn't kick my leg out because my IT bands were so tight.
Wow.
So I got 32 miles in and I was an hour before the cutoff. And they're like, "You can go." And I said, "Nope, I can't." And they're like, "No, really, you can go." And I'm like, "I can't. My body physically cannot go any farther." So I let them know. I'm like, "Hey, you don't want me. I DNF'd." And they're like, it's not about finishing. It's about life." So I was honest. We talked about DNFing, and somebody saw it from Trail Sisters,
Okay, I
and
know them.
Trail Sisters is like the bomb. And they reached out to me and says, "Do you know what our mission statement is?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Well, you're it. It's all about the opportunity and getting women out there and exploring the unknown, and the opportunity to, do amazing things that you're not comfortable with." So they enjoyed the podcast, and they sent it to Hoka. And Hoka watched it, and they let me know. They said, "Do you know what our mission statement is?" And I'm like, "What's it with all these mission statements, right?" So it's about the journey. And on the podcast with Running Millet, that's pretty much all I talked about, was the journey, what you see and the experiences. I mean, I talked about a dead squirrel on the trail. It was huge. It was gigantic. It looked like a groundhog. And I'm poking it with my pole because I'm like, "Wake up." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're good." So at the end, all these people, I'm like, "Did you guys see the big squirrel?" And everybody saw the big squirrel. So it's not always about where you place. So Hoka reached out and said that they'd like to give me an opportunity um, to run Western states
Wow.
as an outreach.
When was this?
It was in December,
Just this past December.
this past December.
Okay.
Yep, yep. And they're like, and I'm like, "Well, you don't want me. I just DNF'd out of my last race, and I'm 65 years old, and I've never done 100 miles." And they're like, "It's about the journey. We want to give you the opportunity to write your own story, whatever it is." So I have goosebumps.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So that's how I got into Western states. I was one of their outreach entries. So I think they gave it to 4 people, and
Wow.
I was just blessed to be one of them.
So you get this golden ticket, so to speak, and like
So to
what
speak.
what what do you do? Like how do you go about giving it your best shot?
Well, hopefully you're not injured. Because when that opportunity comes, just like in any opportunity, like in the lottery, because that's how you get into Western states. People have been trying to get in for 10 years, and all of a sudden they get in. Well, guess what? Their body might not be 100%. So the main thing is to get yourself healed and to train to the best of your ability. And basically that's what I did. So
What did that were you injured? You weren't injured.
I still had IT band issues
Oh.
from Black Forest,
Mm.
and a little bit of a hamstring issue. So I had some things to overcome, but that's what it's about. We don't all walk around at 65 years old or 35 years old, always 100%. So just like anything, you give it everything that you can.
So what did that look like for you starting in December? Because it
Starting in
was June.
December. Yeah, it's in June. Yeah. So I just started putting miles together. And I've already been semi-recovered, so I just started to bank up the miles. Unfortunately, with a little bit of a hamstring, the climbs were a little bit of an issue, and then believe it or not, but the downhills were a little bit of an issue as well because you got an open stride. So basically, I was doing PT, strength, and I did actual strength exercises. It was
Very
very
good.
I know, and I was really good at them. I was so focused. So that was my goal. And the issues that I had were I really dialed them in and were so focused that I had absolutely 0 hamstring and 0 IT band issues, and tendonitis in my foot. None of those played into anything in Western states. So strength training did pay off.
I am very happy
I
to
know,
hear
right?
that. What was your longest did you train by duration? I mean, most of the time you're
Yeah.
training
So
duration. Yeah.
it's not about miles, it's
Right.
about because so Western states is in California.
Yep.
And it's not East Coast.
Nope.
They don't have rocks and roots and nasty stuff like we do, but we don't have the climbs that they do.
The really
So
long stuff.
real like 2-mile
Yeah.
climbs. Yeah. So basically I tried to emulate whatever they had out there here. And take into consideration the gnarlier that I was on, the better because it's strength training.
Mhm.
You're not running, your legs are, not in the same plane. So think about it as a bike rider. Our legs are only doing one thing. They're not going side to side.
Yep.
So when you're running on those smoother trails, your legs are doing the same thing,
Yep.
like a bike. So the more I could put, nasty climbing, that's all strength. So
Yeah.
that's gonna help me in those long climbs. Yeah, so and then the downhills, running finding like Port Clinton, we have around here,
Hmm.
which is
Yep.
amazing. You've got 2-mile climbs out of the reservoir. So basically that's where I did a lot of my training.
Well, the downhill is that's I mean, because Western States is cumulatively downhill, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's hard.
Yes. And I'm not a downhill runner.
Yeah, me neither.
I,
That's
I'm
that
I'm
cycling thing. When you come up as a cyclist, you never become I don't know if you ever really become a downhill runner.
right. It's all about and I don't know about you, but were you a spinner on the climbs? I was a power. I was all
Yeah, I mean,
about
I mash and spin. I mix it up, but yeah,
yeah, I'm a master.
yeah.
And yeah, and I'm about power, not speed. So needless to say, I was never the sprinter because I
Mhm.
never had that explosive. Um, so I needed to start at like 400 meters and ramp it so I could go when the rest of the group was ready. So I'm about power. So my climbs are better than my descents. So train your train your weaknesses. You already got the strong stuff. So make the downhill was my issue. So
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so it's going back to miles versus time. On the
Mhm.
bike, you put miles in. Running, I think you put time in. So like a 30-mile was my max. I should have gotten a 50 in. But injury wise, it was more important to me to show up to the line injury free and a little undertrained than it was to be hurt and overtrained. So
Did you have a strategy? You must have had a strategy when you got there.
I wanted to finish.
I understand.
I actually had a dream that you only have 30 hours. So in my dream, I was so close to the cutoff that I unpinned my bib from my shorts and launched my number over the line
Oh,
as the
wow.
30 hours. I woke up in a cold sweat. And no, you can't do that either. So
Like you're throwing your bike. You're
yeah.
throwing your number over the line.
Exactly. But yeah, so getting back to how I trained, I was able to go out to the training camp at Western States,
Okay.
which was the most amazing experience. It was 3 days, um, and you trained on the course.
Okay.
It's put out there by the promoters of the race. Anybody can do it. You don't have to be in the race. Um, it's a 30-mile on the first day, and then like a 20 and a 20. So that 30 miles was my longest run. And that was the month before the race. And so I got to see the last 70 miles of the actual course, which was the most amazing experience.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool.
yeah, it wasn't at race pace. It was, even though you had time cuts, you had aid stations, the same aid stations. But it was the people that you got to meet, and people that have been out there, so you learn so much. It was like on the job training. That's exactly what it was like.
Were you doing any specific intervals of walking or running, or just walking when the terrain dictated?
Walking when the terrain dictated. However, I'm not a good walker. Because that's like having fast legs, which I don't have. So,
Right.
for me, my heart rate is different. If I keep it in if we were cycling, if I kept it in a big ring, my heart rate stayed nice and level.
Same.
You go in that spinny gear, that little ring, and it jacks up your heart rate. So me trying to walk fast jacks up my heart rate. So
Right.
I'm better off slogging up a hill, of running, and keeping my heart rate. So I trained that. I trained power hiking, walking with a purpose, which was
Gotcha.
huge. That
Yeah.
was to, because around here you run everything or you try to run everything. And when you go, and remember, this is my first 100. So I really wasn't, I was like a big sponge. Everything that everybody told me, I took in, I filtered, I used what I needed, and the rest was just in the back of my head. But everybody said, practice your power hiking, walk with a purpose. I got to tell you, my walking with a purpose, um, I kept looking down at my watch and thinking, I, I must not have a big enough purpose because I'm like barely crawling. But those climbs they were no joke. But yeah, so that's what I did. I trained my climbs. I trained my walking with a purpose. And even if it was on the flat, I looked down, I'm going to give myself 30 seconds and now I'm going to run. And I got to tell you, when you do that, your run's a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, on the escarpment, so the first 3.5 miles of the race, um, it's a big climb. You're in 3.5 miles, it's over 2,500 feet of climb.
It's a lot.
And the top is 19%. So just to give anybody around the Philadelphia area, the wall at Liberty is
The
18.
Maniac Wall.
Yes, is 18%. Picture that at 19%, and you've already been climbing for a mile. So, what I did there was I walked with a purpose, except I walked backwards.
Oh,
So, my I wanted to give my muscles a break, and I didn't want to stop. So I just turned around and walked up the hill backwards for like 10 steps. And people
wow.
were like, "What?" And I'm like, and then I was ready to go again. So I did that like 3 times. I never lost my spot in the group, but relaxed my muscles. And I was able to, I know as funny as that sounds, but it worked. Yeah, I had a great I got up there and it was awesome. Yeah. So just by changing up your muscles, that was
How are you seeing where you're going?
well, it was dark, it didn't matter. No, the sun was coming up, so and you have people, but I just got to the side of the trail and just, 10 steps. That's all I needed was just 10 steps. Enjoy the view, watch how many people are still coming up the mountain,
Yeah.
watch the headlights coming up. I gotta tell you, it was pretty spectacular because otherwise you're just looking at the ground because you definitely didn't want to look up because there was still a lot of up to see. Yeah. So, but by breaking up that muscle, really helped me out. And that's something I learned on the spot. So,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And of course it does. I mean, it's using totally different muscles.
exactly. Yeah. If it's when you're starting to fatigue, just like if I'm out, landscaping and we're doing chainsaws, or something, and my muscles are fatiguing, change it up. Do 5 seconds or 5 minutes at something else. Come back to that. It's like you're all refreshed and renewed. So yeah, it works. Use at this age in our life, we've got a lot of experience to draw on. And
That is for sure.
you just never know when you know, what you can pull out of the hat.
So, unfortunately, the day did not play out as probably you would hope. Can you tell us like what
Yeah.
happened in the day? What ended up happening?
Yeah, so it definitely didn't go the way I wanted. But then again, life doesn't always go the way you want it. You know, you can have the best plan. It can be completely laid out. You know where you're going to attack if you're on the bike. You know, coming into this turn, you've pre-raced it, you've seen it. Um, I didn't see the first 30 miles. I saw the last 70. Um, I gotta say, for Western states, everything that I was told going in, um, not to be overly conservative in that first 28, 30 miles. And if you can get to like 50 to 60, the course gets a little easier. The time cuts get a little more forgiving. Um, and that first 30 was definitely an eye opener. Um, yeah, there was some, it was different. And I did my plan. I got to my first cruise stop. And so, so if you're a bike racer or you're doing a group ride, you have a cue sheet. Well, I carry that cue sheet over to my running. So I did aid station, cruise stop to cruise stop. I knew exactly what mile the aid station was at, what time the aid station closed, was it an up or a down? And I put them on little laminated cards, and I put them on like a little elastic onto and put it in the pocket of my vest. And as I was going, I could pull it out and say, "Oh, I got 2 miles to the aid station. It closes at this time. What's my pace? What's my time?" So I knew, knowledge is power. You can't control anything out there. You don't know what's going to happen, but that one little piece of paper I can control. And it was it was like my guide. So I was right spot on. I got to my crew. Um, it was the first time I had a crew. This was a lot of firsts. It's my first 100. It's my first crew. It's my first pacer. I've never had a pacer. So all these new things. So I come into the aid station where my crew was, and I came around the corner, and I had a whole bunch of girls as my crew, but there was one person missing, and my husband wasn't there. So he has prostate cancer, so he wasn't able to get out there. And it's the first time that he wasn't my crew. I was in good hands. I was in the best hands. These girls had me, but so that was a little tough. So they totally had me. And so, you got a lot of things, it's just not a race. There's a lot of things in life that are going on. So I get there, and they have questions for me, and we all had this all planned out. Everybody knew their job. Everybody was spot on. It was awesome. Um, and I got my food. I got my well wishes. I got a bracelet. The girls were going to pull out an inspirational bracelet, and they chose my husband's bracelet. So I was like, I got this. So I left there, and they all said, and now it's like 90 something degrees. So they're like, go through the wash. And I'm like, what's the wash? So I get to the station, like my crew was there, and then I hit the aid station, and then I went through the wash. I gotta tell you, I do now know what it's like to be a car in a car wash. I am.
What is the wash?
It was awesome. So it's people with big sponges. You are like a car. You just stood there, and they put these huge sponges in the water. I'm not kidding. And they sponged your arms and your legs down. And then the lady says, put your head over. And she dumped a whole bucket of water on my head. They filled your arm sleeves up with ice, put ice in
Wow.
your bandana, but I left there like I just came out of the refrigerator. It was awesome. I mean, these ladies and guys, they were just all over you with this water and just washing you down. So that was perfect. So After that was like that was like at mile 30-ish. And then started a big descent and my quads started going. So as conservative as I was, knowing that downhill forever was going to beat your quads up. I was conservative. Um, and they just started going. So once they started, then like 2 weeks before the race, I started with sciatic,
Mm,
which I never had before. It goes right down your leg into
I
your.
had it when I was pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun, huh? Yeah, it kind of makes your leg weak. Affected my hip. So basically, I stopped at. I had a lot of K tape on. I stopped at an aid station. Um, Took a little too much time there getting K taped. Um, Another descent. I'm losing time. Uh, Got to the bottom and missed my time cut by 6 minutes.
Mm. And what mile was that?
Mile 52.
52.
Yep. So going down into 52 was a 2 mile descent. Um, and then a 2 mile up, and I would have picked up a pacer. So yeah, that was tough, but there was a climb before that, it had 36 switchbacks. Yeah, and, it was so steep and so far down that the switchbacks were actually banked. So if you didn't make them, you'd go off into nothing. Um, and, you hit the river, and then you start to climb up, and that's it, Devil's Thumb. Um, Again, 19% at the top, and you're not supposed to hear a horn. I heard the horn. So you hear a horn if it's like it closes in half an hour at the aid station, then you hear 2 horns. And I'm not quite sure how many horns I heard, but I heard some man saying, "You have 3 minutes."
Oh boy.
So I got into the aid station. They grabbed my bottles. First, I sat down because I was gassed, and they're like, they came over and says, "Are you bleeding?" And I'm like, "No." "Are you broken?" I said, "No." He says, "Then get up." I'm like, "Sweet." He's like, "I want to see you get a buckle." I'm like, I was just like supercharged. They took my bottles, they filled my bottles up, they gave me a little baggie with food, and they walked me out of the aid station and said, "Run, just go." And I was like so empowered by their strength. They wanted to see me succeed. They wanted to give me the best opportunity that I can get to. So I gave it everything I got, but 6 minutes is 6 minutes.
So
So
6 minutes to the next one. I lost
no.
the thread
Yeah,
there. Okay.
so I got out of that aid station in time.
Yep.
So I did a little backtrack. So I got out of that aid station in time, and then got timed out at the next one. So I was doing good and still ahead, but the going down into 52 is where I didn't make the stop. So
Gotcha.
yep. So, yeah, I got onto that and I'm watching my watch because I know what time the aid station is. I know what time it is. And I'm watching and I'm not descending fast enough. I'm like, the river, I got to hit the river. Man, I'm like, maybe I'm on the high side of the river. That was wishful thinking. I wasn't. Rivers are rivers. So it was at the bottom. But I wasn't descending fast enough. The faster I went, the more my toes are jamming. Um, Forget my toenails. Who cares about them? They're overrated. Nothing left to paint. And once they're black, why do you have to paint them anyways? So, but my quads were going. Got onto the bridge, and I looked up, and I'm like, "Did I make it?" And he goes, "6 minutes." And I'm like, "No." And he says, "Yes." And I'm like, "No." And it was like, yeah, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. My rest of my body was ready to go, but my quads were done. Yeah. So,
So when I texted you when I saw that you hadn't he hadn't finished, and you texted me back saying that, yeah, it's soul crushing, but there is also power and strength that you get from that once you process it all. So you've had some time to process, and what have you taken from it?
Healing your soul takes longer than healing your soul. So my feet and my body healed fast. My soul
Mm,
and my heart, it took some time. Um, when you're given a gift, which is what I considered my entry into Western states, um, you want to give it everything you have. You want to make the most. You want to make your sponsors pleased. You want to do this for everyone, including yourself. A lot of people put their time and effort and their support in me. Um, so not only letting yourself down, you feel like you're letting everybody else down. And that's anything. Think about bike racing. Your whole team just drove it for you. Your lead out gave everything they had. All you needed to do was pull it off. So that's kind of how I felt. I was short, somebody came around me, took not the win, but took that 6 minutes. So that's where the soul crushing comes in. The feeling like you've let people down, people that have followed you, people, so that's the hard part. Um, but in looking at that, all of those people were there for you and still are. The support that they showed for you to get there was the support that they showed after. Um, and they were there with you. Yeah, they were just there. I wouldn't have been there in that experience without them. And through me doing this, they all experienced it. So it was really exactly what my philosophy was. It's about the experience. So once um, I gave myself grace, which is a really hard thing to do when you're competitive. You expect your body, I don't care what age you're at, I expect my body to perform at the highest level that it could possibly perform on that day. And looking back, I did that. So I do I regret? Do I have regrets? Sure. I mean, could I have done things differently? Sure. But in the long run, I gave 110% in that moment during that race at any given time. So in that, it's a win. And in saying that, everybody else felt that.
and
So
you really didn't have much time. I mean, there are people who train their whole lives, their whole running lives for this kind of a thing. I mean,
yeah, they do.
I mean that there's no excuse in that. That you had a very truncated time and you did the best you could with the time you had, and you made, I would say, you made people proud.
Yeah, I made me proud. If that's I mean, I did what I did whatever it could, whatever I could to get the job done. Um, and there's no blame. I can't. There's no blame on anyone. There's no blame on me. Um, you can only do what you can do on that day. So
Yep.
when that man said to me when I won um, that race, cherish this moment because that moment never might come again.
Yep.
Guess what? That 6 minutes will never come again. That feeling, I'm going to cherish that because that's a feeling I'm never going to forget because I don't want it ever to happen again. but, but it's going to. and I'll know how to deal with it. So, but that's the bottom line is you can only do so much, you know. You it's anything could happen. Anything could happen around the next corner. My motto is every mile is a gift. Well, guess what? It's not about every mile because it's every step in every mile because it takes a lot of steps to get to that mile. I know it sounds funny, but it's taking that first step. So whether you're doing your first 5K, whether you're doing your first 100 mile, it's one foot in front of the other. And you can turn your ankle. You can be
Yep.
the best trained person, totally ready, game on, and trip over your shoelaces. Getting out of the car, it's over. And that's just the way it is. That's life. We're all going to get older. We can't stop the aging process. And neither can you stop what's going to happen tomorrow. So enjoy today. I had the experience of an absolute lifetime. Yeah.
That's so cool. I wanted to ask you specifically when you talked to Kelly and I think you were describing that first trail run you did where you were just like so high on the stoke. And you said my mom would have been proud of me, which actually sort of made me tear up a minute. I'm just like, here's this woman saying her mom would be proud of her. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I don't know. It's like when so as a child, um I was as my mom would say, trying. I pushed every button, I mean, I had tree forts that were held together with rope, and so I pushed every button. And my mom used to say to me, "Honey, Diane," and I'm like, and it's like, and I'd still do it, and she'd never say no. Well, she did, I think. Not that I ever heard it, but um, so getting back to like my mom. So she was 40 when she had me.
Okay.
Back then, that was really old.
Mm,
Um, so I when in school, like, you bring your mom to school day, everybody was like, "Is that your grandma?" And I'm like, "No, that's my mom. She's 100." And she never let me forget that. But so I would just push the limits, and she knew that I was determined. I would set off to do something and I would get it accomplished. So when I started bike racing, she'd looked at that skinny seat and she'd say, "Honey, you're going to ruin yourself." And I'm like, "Mom." And so then I like went to the Tour de Suisse, and she was so proud of me. She's like, "You're where?" And I'm like, "I know, Mom, right?" So she was just, and we had like the girls came to we raced the Housatonic Classic. Do you remember that?
okay.
And
Hmm.
so all the girls stayed at our house. My mom she had like the whole neighborhood over to see her girls. So the pride in her to see her daughter um, doing these epic things. So when cyclocross came, the first big gigantic mud puddle I ran through, or rode my bike through, I'd be like, my mom would be so proud of me. So I was covered with mud. So those are the kinds of things that as our mom, we want to see our kids
Yes.
do and accomplish or experience. It doesn't matter if you accomplish it, just experience it. So out there, you know, I was up in these mountains and it looked like you're looking down the great abyss. There was no trees. You were so high. And I was just up there. I'm like, if my mom could just see me now. So yeah,
Oh,
because I mean, we want our daughters. I had two older brothers, and the pride in her children was overwhelming. But I don't know. I think a mom seeing their daughter, it's a whole different thing. Like dad seeing their sons,
yeah.
like the dad plays football, the son plays football. But when a mom sees their daughter, even if like my mom was a big sewer, so when I would sew something, she'd like show everybody. So
Yeah.
look, she sews like, but she wasn't a runner, but or a biker, but it was something that her daughter was accomplishing. So, and that's, I mean, I see moms out there with their daughters, and I give them kudos all the time because they're growing strong women.
Yeah.
They're
No.
they're our
Yeah.
they're our future in the sport. So, my mom produced me, and I got all of her strengths and her heart and her inner craziness, and it's just coming out of my pores, so
I
she
love that. I
yeah.
love that a lot. I'm so glad you shared that. My mom always she always said you can do whatever you put your mind to. I mean, she always and then she meant that to me, and I can tell that through the years she's been so damn proud. Like,
Oh, yeah.
so it's just
Yeah.
really been cool.
Yeah, and they might not say it all the time, or they do say it all the time, but you could just see it in their faces.
Yeah.
They're just glowing, and, you know, I'm my mom. I didn't think I'd ever be my mom, but I'm her
Always.
mom, because when you're little, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna be like my mom," and it's like, "I'm like my mom, and I can't be more proud." Yeah.
That's so rad. Dan, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I never love asking this question, but it's the inevitable question you have to ask, the sort of like what's next question that everybody always asks after you do a thing. But do you have something on the horizon that you're looking towards?
I do. Black Forest.
Oh,
I
okay.
I have revenge. I have unfinished business there. So Black Forest is definitely on my radar. Um, and I think Twisted Branch. It's a qualifier for Western states. Uh, I have unfinished business there. Um,
We
I
will be
think
cheering you on.
maybe when I'm 70, right? But this time I hope to be the oldest finisher, um, because I have unfinished business, and I know I could be better than I was. And I hope to be because that's what we all strive for. So, what's the goal? Be better than yesterday. Yeah.
I'm gonna drop the mic right there, my friend. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with Anne Marie Chaker, a Wall Street Journal reporter turned professional bodybuilder at age 45 and the author of Lift: How Women Can Reclaim Their Physical Power and Transform Their Lives. This was a provocative one to be sure, so come on back for that. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause. And please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag at Feisty Menopause. Share the show with your friends. And please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.